What's goody? LL Nation, welcome in. Happy Tuesday to everybody. It's the Lucky Lefty podcast, the original Lucky Lefty. Malik Zaire, I'm Shaun Davis. We're brought to you by and featuring Onora Whisky, OnoraWhisky.com. It's that premium American whiskey, OnoraWhisky.com. If you drink, by all means, make sure that you drink.
Responsibly.
You got to drink responsibly. It's a great time, man. This is the best month, right? Football, NFL, college football, NBA on the way. It's a sports dream for any sports fan. The month of October heading into the winter months. Let's talk some Marcus Freeman today. The staff spent most of last week on the recruiting trail, doing big things. We have a couple of recruiting questions in the chat, so we'll get to those. Marcus Freeman returned to his normal Monday press conference, had a lot to say. And I'm sure I'm going to tick off a few Notre Dame fans today because the title of our show, kind of dictates, where I'm going to go with this. And, I've been using the word relax since the summer, when we were talking recruiting and recruiting battles. And, even after the 0-2 start, it was like everything's bad. We agree, but like relax. Relax. And so, in terms of a certain freshman that everybody wants to see on the field, I'm going to say today, relax. And there's a reason why I say that. In relationships, one of the biggest mistakes we make left is
Yeah.
that we don't know how to listen. Like we can feel the way we feel, but when the person we're in relationship with continues to tell us either what they need or how they feel, we're not hearing them because we're too busy trying to get our point across. And I think the fan base has been too busy trying to get their Tobia Merriweather point across that they're not listening because the message from the head coach has been consistent. That's all you can ask from anybody. Like, I might not like what you say, but if your same message is consistent, then I have to respect it. I had a conversation with my dad yesterday. He had to check me a little bit. I'm a grown man with my own family, and my dad can still check me every now and then. So, he asked me a question. He said, "What's going on with Notre Dame?" And so I said, "Well, they, two in a row." I said, "They're probably going to run the table in October because they're better than every team on the schedule." I think they're getting better as a team. Marcus Freeman, you could tell he's getting better as a head coach. And I said, but man, it's just this thing like the young players, some young players are playing, some other young players aren't playing. And I got through talking and explaining everything, and he looked at me. He said, "But I thought you told me that the program was in good hands." I said, it is in good hands. He said, "So that means you trust them?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, how can you trust him with the full program and not trust him with that freshman?"
Mm.
And I sat up and I said, "You know what, old man?" He said, "Either you trust him or you don't." He said, "Trust is not 95%. Trust is not based upon whether or not you don't like what's going on. Like, either you trust him as your head coach or you don't. And if you trust him, trust that he's doing the right thing by his players and by his team." And I said, "You know what? I'm going to go ahead and take that. I'm going to go ahead and take that. And I'm going to rest in that because I do trust that the program is in good hands with him and the rest of this staff. Might not like everything that I see, but I'm going to go ahead and put my trust in him." So he said some things yesterday that made me feel like, you know what, coach, I need to do a better job of listening to you. Because you keep saying the same thing. You keep telling us what's going on. And one of the things he talked about was, what they gained from the bye week and getting an early bye week and how advantageous it was for him and his staff, both in recruiting and in development. And not only recognizing what they were doing wrong, but changing it. That's the thing, bro. There's a lot of people that know they're doing wrong, but they don't have the follow through and character to just go ahead and admit it, apologize, and have changed behavior. It's one thing to apologize, but if you don't change the behavior, what does the apology mean? Let's hear from Marcus Freeman talking about the benefits of the bye week.
The bye week went really well. I mean, I think it's a chance for us as a football team to improve. And that was my challenge as a head coach to these guys and to our staff was we have to find a way to improve in our 3 days of practice, but also to physically and mentally recover. All right, there were some guys that were injured that we had to be able to get them physically recovered, and I think everybody in our program had to mentally recover and prepare for this 8-game stretch coming up. And so it was a really good week. We didn't have any distractions. That was a challenge I really laid out for our players. No distractions this week. Continue to get better, and I was pleased with how the bye week went. Obviously, coaches went on the road recruiting on Monday and Thursday and Friday, and a lot of coaches got back Saturday morning. So really, really productive week and ready to move forward to BYU.
For you guys, was the bye week challenging for you, or was it all about where the bye week was?
For some guys, the bye week keeps guys on edge because they're so anxious and to not lose the momentum they had going into that last week. I know a lot of guys are on a high coming off a great win from North Carolina that they feel a little anxiety. I felt a little anxiety coming off of a good win going into a bye week because I didn't want to feel like I had to restart the momentum. But it is good rest for another different players and different guys that are more veteran, that have been there, done that, to get a quick break to recover on some things that they may be nursing. But also in the bye week, that's underrated is you get a lot of practice with the twos and the threes, and getting ones and twos reps because the varsity is usually resting a little bit. So the freshmen, the guys that are on the red shirt freshmen, they getting a lot of reps during the bye week. Towards the second half or the end of practice, just because those are guys that are going to fly around and still get contact, this, that, and the third. The first half of practice is the veterans doing more walkthrough stuff. You may get a quick 7 on here or there, but the team periods, you got the young guys getting 1 reps, really getting physical, not losing that edge of it, but you still preparing for the week after through that bye week.
It's funny that you mentioned that. It was one of the things Marcus Freeman talked about yesterday, is that they used this week to allow their youngsters to get a lot of scrimmage work, right? And, he was asked about, the 4 games and at this point, putting red shirts on guys. And he was like, dude, our team is not at the point where we can just red shirt guys. If guys are able to help us win games, we need to make sure that they can play. And we're building up to that point to find out which of our youngsters can help us win games moving forward. And he said this week was pivotal in that and learning things about guys and putting them in live scrimmages. And so he loves the progress of his young guys and he sees them getting better. That's why we talked about today's show being the perfect work. Patience has the perfect work. If I pull that, you allow me to pull that from scripture and just use it in this instance because, it's a lot of things that we would like to have happen, but there's something to patiently waiting for the right time to deploy certain things and making sure that the development is full and complete. All right. And that's something you have to entrust to this coaching staff. All right. Because they're not coaching to anybody else's vision. That's something else that my dad dropped on me. He was like, they're not coaching to Oklahoma's vision. They're not coaching to Clemson's vision. They're coaching to Marcus Freeman's vision. His vision, and they're coaching to that. And I was like, yo, all right, like you're making me think about this and kind of trust, what's going on and what's in front of me. And I think when you talk about that and you hear the opportunity, because you guys would talk to all you guys, from 15, 16 would always talk about the window of opportunity for young guys to make an impression. And like that window would close, and like if you didn't do anything right for 2 weeks, it was like, yo, you're losing steps, you're falling behind. Is that something that in general it goes across college football, or is it dependent upon the division, the head coach, and the coaching staff and how they run things?
I think sometimes it's a mix of both. You need a vision with the head coach that you believe in, that you know that if you buy in, that it'll execute and pay off in results for you as an individual, as in going to the league, getting the Heisman, winning the award that you are a preseason champion for. So I do think that it starts there,
Mm-hmm.
but then you don't always. Uh, well, I would say it starts there in terms of that's a building block, a foundational piece that you build off of. And then as a team, you have to execute. Okay, I know I got the back office working for me. I just got to go out and make it happen in the forefront. So it keeps you able, it keeps you having the ability to stay focused, stay focused on doing your job, stay focused on knowing the down and distance, the awareness of the situation, awareness of your teammate, playing for the guy next to you. Because then it becomes, okay, if we can get ourselves together and make each other better, then I know we can win late game situations and get to the playoffs like we know we can.
Lucky Lefty podcast. Left Shaun Davis talking about Notre Dame as they progress as a team and the development of young players becoming pivotal. And Marcus Freeman being open and saying, yeah, we're going to need the young players as we go into this season that can help us win games to be able to get on the field and do that. And we're building them up to doing that. And the bye week helped us accomplish those things. Once again, not only did he say he recognized his faults, it was the greatest thing I heard from him yesterday, bro. He said, when things got to his worst, I looked at myself first as the head coach and what I was doing before I even started watching film. It's like before I started talking to these players and these coaches, I had to check myself to see what I was doing wrong. And he said one of the things that I was doing wrong was something that I preached all spring and all fall. I had to readjust it and change it. And Marcus Freeman talked about that.
As a leader, you got to start by looking at yourself, and when you put so much emphasis into finishing, as I brought up before, we were up versus Oklahoma going into the second half and partly through the third quarter. We're up versus Ohio State. We're up versus Marshall. We're up versus Cal. We keep going, and so all of a sudden you sit here and you talk about finishing, but then you really go back and evaluate, and there's plays in the first quarter that we weren't executing the way we were supposed to. And so that's kind of where me as a leader said, hold on, take all the emphasis off of finishing and really look at every play of the game and focus on execution and execution in our preparation and really taking a deep dive into the way we prepare and the point of emphasis in being, are we executing in practice the way we need to help us execute in the game? And so I kind of just took the focus. It's not about finishing. It's about finishing every play, right? And that you got to make sure you execute on play one, no matter if you're up or down, as you do in the fourth quarter. And so I wanted to make sure that our focus is on every play of this game and not just finishing in the fourth.
That's a far departure from what we heard originally when he started his tenure as head coach. He talked about finishing games, not making mistakes when you have the opportunity to win the game in the fourth quarter. And that still applies. Your best players step up in the fourth quarter to win games. But now, as a head coach, he's expanded that to say, you know what? And I'll point this out because I didn't cut the clip. I probably should have to go with this. But he talked about in this week, in the last 2 weeks of practice, he has been quicker to stop a play in the middle of the play to focus on the small things, regardless of whether or not it went for 20 yards, regardless of whether or not it went for a touchdown. No. Run that back. We cannot do this. We cannot do that. You didn't do your job. You have to do this. That is the maturation of him coaching and being a head coach. Look, this is something else that we have to understand. And it goes against what most people might feel about the Marcus Freeman situation and what might be surrounded with Tommy Rees actually being handed to him or suggested to him, or however you want to say it. Jack Swarbrick and Notre Dame knew what they were doing when they hired Marcus Freeman. And in order to hire him without the experience, they knew they were playing the long game, or else they were being foolish. If they didn't hire Marcus Freeman, knowing that he was going to have to learn on the job and make some mistakes as a first-time head coach, if they didn't expect that and didn't expect to play the long game with him, then they made the wrong hire. But I fully expect that they knew going into this season that there were going to be some slip-ups, that they were going to have to watch him have to mature as a head coach. My thing is, I love people that exhibit changed behavior. When you can see a head coach say, you know what, I haven't been doing it right. I know I've been saying that, but we're going to have to add some things. We're going to have to change some things in order to become the team that we have to become. Originally, I thought this was the way to do it. Now I'm seeing, as I'm growing and I'm learning and I'm maturing in this job, no, that's not good enough. We're going to have to do even more. And for him to admit that things that he wasn't really quick to do in the fall camp, now in season, he's grown into the point that he's quick to point out things quickly and stop it mid-practice or mid-play. That shows a lot of growth to me. We're talking about 4 games, 4 weeks into the season. You have to like what you hear from your head coach.
Yeah, you see a guy evolving right in front of you as a young head coach, and it's accelerated because it's his first year. So the lessons are a lot bigger and that he's learning. So he's making a lot bigger adjustments. I think year one, for him to take on these adjustments and challenges in a positive way
Yeah.
and not get too frustrated in the media where he's obviously flustered, I think that shows great character leading. If you had to uh, uh, think about this for a 10-year span, you can see that he's a guy that's always going to keep evolving. I think we saw a guy that was there for 10 years last time. You know, you couldn't really notice the improvements after a while. You couldn't notice the growth. You couldn't notice the expansion, and it kind of got a little dry. Well, with Marcus Freeman, it's refreshing to see big growth happen in a short amount of time because it gives hope for making the result of the end of the season a lot better than what was started as.
So he went on to talk about what everybody has been harping on, right? Everybody wants to see 15 on the field. Everybody wants to see Tobia Merriweather. And he was asked about the growth of Tobia Merriweather, but he went on to talk about the growth of the entire wide receiver room.
The biggest challenge for them is to continue to seek feedback. As I've told all 3 of them, and Joe Wilkins and Tobias and Cozy, if you're not playing as much as you want, we got to continue to get the feedback. We have to continue to be in Coach Stuckey and Coach Reese's office and say, what do I have to do to improve? And that's not just for those guys, but for everybody. If what you're getting on the practice field or in the game isn't what you want, don't just accept it. Go seek feedback. Sometimes that's not what you want to hear. Right? It's not easy to hear things that you have to improve at, but if you really want to know how to get better and to get some of the results that you want, you got to go seek that feedback. But they've been practicing well. Lorenzo Styles has got to get better, and he's been practicing well, and Jaden Thomas and those guys that are playing right now, Brandon Lindsay, those wideouts, all have to get better. But, I see Tobias improving. I see Cozy improving. Joe Wilkins, they're all improving. And what package they'll have or what their impact will be on the game is still to be determined. But, all you can ask is the head coach is to see constant improvement out of those guys.
I mean, that's left. He tells you the way it is, bro. He's been consistent. You might not want to hear it, whether it's him or whether it's Tommy Reeves. It's like, yo, get better.
Yeah,
Get better to get on the field.
that's
I
true.
know fans don't like hearing that. Well, you can do this, you can do that. Hey, this is going to be the standard. Remember, he told us in the summer when it comes to preparing yourself for practice, in the pace of practice, we're not changing. And as far as this, he's not changing. There's a level that you have to get on the field. And until you get there, we're not playing. And he's been saying it consistently.
He's been saying it pretty consistently, and the best part about this is that I love the fact that he's allowing his players to develop and not speaking about, oh, we need to get another guy in, we need to recruit better, we need to do this. And I think that's making the whole development of the program take a right foot in the right direction, because now you got guys that can get comfortable in developing and trusting the program, trusting the coaches, that they not have to look over their shoulders that guys are going to replace them. It can be a healthy competitive environment to where guys are developing from year 1 to year 3 and being the prime individual they need to be to get drafted and win game.
You know what? It's one of those things. I was glad that he pointed out, even though he was specifically asked about three guys, which was Joe Wilkins, Cozy, and Tobias Merriweather in their playing time. He made it a point to say, heck, we're asking them to get better. Shoot, we're asking. Lorenzo Styles was the player of the week last week for us. He needs to play better. He needs to be better. Braden Lindsey needs to be better. Jaden Thomas needs to be better. And it goes back and it harkens back to what we as a fan base know that they suffered from standpoint under the previous regime. They weren't being coached.
Yeah.
They weren't being coached. So this huge jump that we were expecting to see is like, we got to pull the reins back a little bit, like relax, right? Lorenzo was being coached. Lorenzo was out there just on pure talent last year, making plays. And now he's being asked to be a technician and use that skill this way. And it's going to take time. Lorenzo week 10 will probably be a totally different player than Lorenzo week 3 against North Carolina.
Oh, no, facts.
Well, totally different player because he's going through a process like everybody else, and he has years to grow. Braden Lindsey doesn't have that, right? So we expect Braden Lindsey like, yo, this is your last year. Last chance for most Notre Dame fans to actually come to like him. It's totally different. And so when someone tells you what they're doing, you don't have to like it, but they're being honest. And this coaching staff, Marcus Freeman's being honest. He's been honest. He's been consistent. I understand we want to see certain people on the field. And this is something else he said yesterday. We didn't say it directly, but let me paraphrase. And I want to get your input on this. When we were 0-2, the last thing on my list for us to win games was playing certain players. Offensive line was in a flux. Leaders wasn't stepping up and making plays late in games. Like I had to fix a whole bunch of other stuff that took high priority for us to win games. And y'all are talking about putting a freshman on the field. That putting him on the field with this mess ain't changing nothing.
Ain't changing nothing.
It's not changing a thing. We have to get this right before we can even let's get this right so we can win games. Because the truth of the matter is, bro, Notre Dame can win Notre Dame, true or false, Notre Dame could have won every game in September without 15 seeing the field.
Oh, 100%.
They could have. They could have won every single game in September without 15 ever seeing the field.
Yeah.
And so for me, to have the head coach come out and be like, look, man, there are bigger issues than what people are clamoring for. And he's not about to be moved by what the fan base is clamoring for. He's about fixing the core of the program to get the foundation right so that the vision he has for the program can come into manifestation.
That's right.
And you have to trust that. You might not like it. It might be sometimes you're like, I don't know. But like I said, he's transparent and honest.
He's transparent and honest, man. And I think that honesty is a refreshing thing because it's raw honesty. So when it's raw, it's a little bit different. You don't know how to really take it, at first. So I think it's an adjustment that fans will appreciate, but it's something that is needed if we want to ever continue to grow. We're not faking the funk over here. We're
Right.
not pretending to be a program that has it all together and has the guys just taking the right steps. He's saying, look, there's some things that I got to fix here and there. It's going to take a minute, but we got this.
We got this.
We got this.
Yeah. 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 You have to feel that way, And I ask myself, would I rather have Marcus Freeman at this point, or would I rather have a fraudulent head coach that, has conned oil men down in Texas to pour money so that they can have back-to-back recruiting classes in the top 3, still give the same output as a football team. You know what I mean? Like, no, give me Marcus Freeman right now over Jimbo Fisher. It's not even a question. Big game coming up against BYU this Saturday, prime time, Shamrock Series. Left question of the day. LL Nation, let us know what you think in the chat. Does the way you look on the field enhance the way you play? Does the way you look on the field enhance the way you play? Marcus Freeman was asked about the drip. He was asked about the Shamrock Series, the uniforms, and he even hinted that we might see the green uniforms again.
As a player, I never had a chance to wear any other jersey than our normal home and away. But I think it's something that players nowadays, our young guys love it. They love to wear something new, something different. And, our kids love to wear the green jersey they wore a couple weeks ago. And it might even be a request. They said to maybe wear them again. I'm like, all right, guys, So I don't think it truly affects the way they play. But, if they look good and they feel good, I'm all for it. So anything to keep these guys confident, man, if it's a new jersey, for them to feel good about playing this game, I'm all for it.
What's your thoughts? Was it a certain uniform combination that you felt like, okay, my drip is on display. I'm about to go out here and put on?
Man, I always just felt good with the towel in the back, man. If I had the towel in the back, I was my Superman cape in football and could do no wrong with that towel in the back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Look, the combination is sweet. The intricate details that they put on the sleeves of this particular jersey they're going to be wearing out in the desert on Saturday. I'm sure they'll talk about it during the broadcast. I love it. And, the names being on the back is always a nice little thing because it kind of bucks against the tradition of Notre Dame. Notre Dame's color scheme, bro, in my opinion, is one of the most flexible color schemes. Like, they have no excuse not to have drip when it comes to a uniform. That's just my opinion. You can mess around with the gold, the green, the blue, the white. There's so many different things you can do. There's no excuse for Notre Dame not to have consistent drip.
No excuse. But the good thing is that Marcus Freeman is going to go in that colorways. Like he said, Ohio State just had the red and white. They kept it real classic. But Notre Dame, for being as classic as he is, this is the closest I think we'll get to a head coach trying to get more into switching up some of the color schemes.
Yeah. I think it's one of the I have to see it because I started thinking like, where does this uniform rank amongst the other Shamrock Series uniforms? And I'm like, I really can't do it because I have to see how it pops on TV. It's one thing to see it in a professional photo shoot, but I have to see how it pops
Yeah.
during the actual the broadcast. That's going to be very important for me. But for you, what was your favorite Shamrock?
Definitely the white ones when we wore them against ASU in Dallas. It was you know, the Catholics versus the Devils in a sense. We had the all crispy Adidas all white with the gold helmet with the Irish on the side of the helmet. That was the coldest uniforms. The second ones are the ones we played in Boston, the all green lima bean. The ones we beat Boston College with, those were the second hardest.
Did you get like a vibe when you played in Boston? I mean, that was a pretty special venue.
It was a crazy venue because it felt more backyard than it did a stadium, just because it's
Mm.
really enclosed. Uh, it was really cool to see how low level the stadium was. Like you felt like you was playing in the neighborhood. So uh, had a lot of throwback vibe days, but you know, it's still that field and the Yankee Stadium field was real astroturf like, so it was hard. It didn't feel too great to get tackled on it.
Mm. Moving forward, the month of October, what are you looking to see? Like we're talking about playing the long game, the vision for this team, the vision for this program. BYU, they present a questionable run defense, smallest defense when it comes to bulk and size. They like to stay in nickel a lot, something we saw North Carolina try to do against Notre Dame and fail miserably. As far as stopping the run, they do a terrible job of setting the edge. You know, there are a lot of people that think this game is going to be close because BYU is ranked 16th, because they have Jaron Hall at quarterback. But a lot of things that I saw from BYU was scheme offensively. They scheme guys open. You know, they get their tallest receiver in the slot and then let him run the fade where everybody else is running a hitch on the outside and try to take advantage of that opportunity one on one. That scheming guys open. They really don't have a top notch wide receiver that you just feel like, yo, we have to make sure we stop him. Like there is no Josh Downs on this squad. There is no true blazer in the wide receiver core. They have good wide receivers, and a couple of their guys will be returning from from injury. But they played, man. Look, they want to throw the ball. Our pass rush and our secondary is our strength.
Yeah.
They can't stop the run. That's our identity offensively. Honestly, we're gonna give our predictions later in the week. I just don't see this game being that difficult for Notre Dame if they show up and play the way they need to play.
Yeah, I really don't see it being a difficult challenge for Notre Dame. I think it's just an opportunity to start back getting hot on another sorry team. We left into the bye week on a sorry team, coming into the bye week on another sorry team that we should be able to go and take advantage of. Should catch that momentum back. Should be able to, start back hot again. We need to put up 40 plus points. We need to be able to keep them under 21. We need to be able to set the standard of dominance that even on a bye week, we coming off strong if we want to give the appearance that, that Marshall game was a fluke. That Marshall game was a fluke. That's what we have to fight against the rest of the season. There's no championship hopes right now, but there is some
Mm-hmm.
opportunities to the championship game for us is November 5th because it's a recruiting championship and it's a chance to try to even up that score with Clemson. I think it's still a rivalry because we won a couple of times, but they've won more. So
Right.
it's a chance to go in there and win again against a quarterback that, played really well against us. His probably the best game he's ever played in college football. We got to right that wrong and make it one of his worst. So
Yeah, I agree. It's not, once again, we keep saying after 2 weeks being 0-2, we were like, you know what? We've come to the realization that this rest of this season is going to be about Notre Dame. and how they improve and what type of team they can become. Like the 2022 team, who are they going to be? We know the Marshall loss is going to be in there. The Ohio State loss really wasn't a negative. I don't think the fan base looked at it as a negative coming out of that game. We felt like, okay, we hung with them. We're a pretty good team. You go from that to Marshall, and now you have a bunch of questions and you're trying to figure out. And they have the opportunity starting in the month of October out in the desert against BYU this Saturday night to show who they want to be. Michael Mayer has done an incredible job of leading. Marcus Freeman talks about that, but he also talked about the bye week leading to guys like Michael Mayer, who was banged up, DJ Brown, who was banged up, and Ramon Henderson, who didn't play against North Carolina, getting back healthy, getting their full complement of players at 100%. He also talked about Eli Raridon holding stays and how their development has been pushed forward with the injury to Kevin Bauman. He also said that Mitchell Evans is probably still another week or two away from getting back in the mix, but they feel very confident about Eli Raridon holding stays. And he went on to say that Eli Raridon is very special, very special. In the blocking game, it's very rare that you have a freshman that wants to knock someone's head off. And he said, and that's his mentality as a blocker. And he's a very skilled pass catcher. We've yet to see that, but you think somewhere down the line with him and Michael Mayer on the field, they're going to start to unleash two receiving targets at the tight end position that they can do a lot of things, whether they're connected to the line or detached and put into the slot or even out on the outside.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like a bunch of combinations and stuff we have to try out. A lot of great things down the pipe, man. I'm just so excited just to see how, this thing is coming together. Marcus Freeman, I love the way he addresses these interviews, his head on. He's not avoiding any smoke. He's letting people know the raw truth. And hopefully he can continue this path of truthfulness and honesty and not getting too flustered in the process. I think it'll be good for his longevity at Notre Dame.
Yeah, it was funny because he was asked about BYU in their last game against Utah State and their inability to stop the run, and then their inability to stop the run and being pushed around by Oregon. And he said, look, man, don't get it twisted. Like where we are as a team, that win against North Carolina, that's a good team. You saw how they rebounded off of the loss from us and went out and took care of business this past week. So don't just look at the North Carolina win like, oh, that was North Carolina. Like, no, for us, that was a challenge because of where we were and where we were trying to get to. And BYU is another challenge because we're still trying to get to the level of who we think we are as a football team. But, I stand with Marcus Freeman. He's like, yo, if we come out and play Notre Dame football, we're going to have a really good chance to win this game. And I feel 100% confident in that as well. And when I say I don't think they're going to be a problem, look, this is not, we said this, this is going to be an a season long struggle with how Notre Dame wins games because of the way they have to win games. Physical play up front, it's not going to be pretty. But once again, the one thing that has been consistent is whatever a team consistently does offensively, Notre Dame minimizes that. If a team is scoring 40 to 50 points, no, we're only giving up 28 to 30. If a team is used to scoring 35, no, we're only going to give you 20. That's
Yeah, we got to
consistent.
cut that in half. Your average, we just
Absolutely. So it's like BYU is not about to put up the same amount of offensive points. They're not. Jaron
no.
Hall is going to have difficulty.
He's gonna have some trouble.
Outgoing. Absolutely. So that's the confidence. It's like that's the consistency. And if you add in this offensive line and this run game continuing to build, yes, I feel confident that Notre Dame. That's my prediction is probably going to be a 10-point victory.
Yep.
That's probably going to be my prediction, unless something changes.
I see us winning by double digits. Of course, I think just because I think Tommy is catching his groove. I think he's got a lot to prove himself, and he's gonna go out there and make some plays with 87 and Styles getting into the fold more. I think it's going to be great to see that come down in the future.
Yeah. Man. Once again, Saturday night. I love it's prime time too.
Mm-hmm.
I love that it's prime time. So Marcus Freeman was asked, and I want to get your input on this. He said, at this point, someone asked him at this point, what are the strengths and weaknesses of your football team?
Obviously we've been running the ball offensively where we want to. Again, we've always want to get better, but we've improved at running the ball. Drew Pine has really made some really good decisions as a quarterback in terms of, I've said it to this group in this room and to our team from the beginning of the year, when you have success running the ball, it opens up everything, right? It opens up the pass game. It opens up misdirection. It opens up everything. And so we have to have success running the ball, and that will open up, our passing game. And it's been really good to see Drew Pine, number one, make good decisions, right? And that's the most important thing at the quarterback position. Got to make the right decision. Two, he's limited his turnovers. He's taking care of the football. And then number three, he's starting to make a lot of plays. And so it's good to see him in that growth and that part of our offense, some guys stepping up. Defensively, we have to, again, there's a series or two, a half that, we're letting teams go down and score, and one, it could be a big play. North Carolina, the first series of the game, it was quarterback scrambles. And so we have to get those little things fixed, but our defense is playing really, really well. And I love what Coach Golden is doing with the scheme, with our staff, with those players. They're doing a great job, but obviously the expectation is us to be perfect, and we can't give up a touchdown. And so we're critical in those situations, and they're working tirelessly to improve it.
How do you feel about the strengths and weaknesses of Notre Dame, as Marcus Freeman talked about it right there?
I like it. I like that he's in tune with what's going on with the team. It's something that the fans can also relate to because it's something that, it is there. And if we correct that, along with some different pieces in recruiting, that's the path forward. That's the part of the vision that we talked about, because you can see that. When he starts speaking about the things of the weaknesses and the strengths, you can visually see it. A lot of times when we had the old guy in there, he was saying things that you like, man, you saying a bunch of word salad, a bunch of nothing, you leave the press conferences more worried than going in. Because you like, man, what did I just listen to for about an hour? But when you listen to Marcus Freeman, you like, okay, I can see that. I can see what you're saying. I can see if y'all corrected that, where that could take you guys. Okay, that was a good response to my question. So you getting a guy that can paint pictures of what needs to be addressed that you can actually believe in, that you can actually follow and buy into. That's more comforting for a fan base like us, but also it's real because we know if it's not changing in that aspect, we know who to blame.
Yeah.
We know who to go to. But like, remember you told us it was about this and this and this, and it doesn't look corrected. What happened? What's going on? And that all comes to when you have a head coach at a high level like that can be accountable and take accountability and responsibility for things that he acknowledges the issues and he's taking on as that's me. That's what you want to see. That's what keeps a guy around long enough, even through bad times.
Yeah. And look, having that strength, once again, that he talked about, the strengths he spoke about go directly at the weaknesses of BYU. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. It goes directly at the weaknesses of BYU, which makes this matchup, once again, we call North Carolina a perfect foe for where Notre Dame was. BYU, even though they're ranked 16th, once again falls right in line for the perfect foe for Notre Dame to continue to build and develop their strengths while they work on their weaknesses moving forward into the month of October. And Stanford is the same thing. Then you'll have Syracuse after that, UNLV. Like, the schedule really sets up. Like, you didn't want to start 0-2, but if you had a first-time head coach that needed to learn on the job and a team that needed to get better as the season went on, the schedule, the way it's set up, even with Ohio State being game one, to be the litmus test. The schedule from the rest of September into October really set up to really develop who you are and develop an identity going into November when you have your two biggest games against Clemson and USC.
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes it so important too, is that you getting a culmination of all the things that we feel like we complained about being addressed. And I can just appreciate that effort that we see, and it's like it's almost feels like they're in tune with what the fan base is requiring.
Yeah.
You feel it. It's like, okay, I'm just checking in. You said you're gonna get that done. Okay, we on the same page. So as long as we stay on the same page coming out this bye week, BYU doesn't stand a chance. We have more talent than they do. What we're really good at, they're really bad at. Period. And we got a defense that held Ohio State to 21 points. So I'm taking that for the rest of the season. That's the standard. So playing below that defensively, I don't know. Also, Brandon Joseph's killing it in the numbers. Killing it. Doing his job.
Yeah.
Making our transfer portal rate go skyrocket.
Yeah.
Our stock for transfer portal is through the roof.
Yeah. Yeah. And people forget.
Don't buy in now. It's too late. You gotta wait for the dip because it's too high right now.
And I'll say this: don't just assume that Brandon Joseph is dipping after this year. I'll leave it at that. Lucky Lefty podcast. Something in common that both of these head coaches and teams, they both appealed at targeting calls on both of their players. Starting defensive back for BYU, which they're going to need in this game. Gabe Judy Lally won his appeal. He will be able to play and start. Unfortunately, JD Bertrand, his appeal was upheld, and he'll have to wait until the second half. So they had similar appeals going into the week. They both heard back over the weekend from NCAA. Unfortunately, JD Bertrand will have to sit. Gabe Judy Lally for BYU, he gets to start by winning his appeal. So just a little update on those things right there. Let's get to Marcus Freeman because he talked about, I don't know why people made a story yesterday. Well, I do, because the depth chart came out, and for the first time on the depth chart, Benjamin Morrison was listed as the number one starting defensive back to the field rather than Clarence Lewis. But, Benjamin Morrison has been out there for the first series starting for the last two games. He's been the starter. Like, they just made it official on paper. He's been the starter. He was the starter against North Carolina. He was the starter against Cal. Yeah. I guess he was kind of under the radar because it wasn't official. But officially on the depth chart, he was recognized as the starter. And he talked about his prized defensive back. But bookmark this and listen to what Marcus Freeman says, because it might make sense as to why other freshmen might not be seeing the field.
He is extremely talented. Their daughters are gymnasts and a great family, but he's just a mature kid. He's mature. He came in. He doesn't talk a lot. He just works, and he works. And yes, he's got good genetics, but I think he has a really good foundation. His high school, you can tell he's well coached. That's the one thing, just being on the road. I don't mean to get off subject a little bit. Being on the road recruiting, it's interesting going into these high schools and talking with coaches, and you say, okay, they're in a college-like system, being coached like college football players, and some they're playing see-ball, get ball, and in your mind, say, okay, that guy's going to be he's going to take a little bit more time to develop. Ben Morrison's a guy that you can tell understands college football, the technical side of it, and he came in here and he's blessed with God-given ability, but mentally he understands what it takes to have success at this level.
Your head coach is telling you something right there. If you listen, he went all the way back to recruiting, watching the system they come from, how they're being coached, and knowing before they get to campus, this guy's going to be a little bit further ahead than this guy. I'm not saying who that refers to, but that's just your head coach letting you know how things work with freshmen and why one freshman can come in and immediately Get on the field, whether it's DNA, whether it's bloodlines, father playing in the NFL that can technically make him sound and give him things to know and see that other freshmen might not be able to go out there and apply immediately. All of that matters. And once again, be patient and trust this coaching staff to integrate these young players at the right time.
That's right. At the right time. And I think the best part about all of this is we're going to get in a situation where you're going to get guys that respond the right way on the team and in recruiting. Guys are going to take notice of Ben Morrison's track that are elite guys and say, okay, I used to think that no freshman is going to get time because they can't be trusted. Now we're seeing a guy that's trusted on the defense side of football. They're putting him in there. He's making plays. That's what Ohio State's receiver room looks like. After that first game against Notre Dame, I bet the Ohio State Carnell Tate was probably licking his chops. He was like, oh, those were freshmen out there on the first game of the season making plays. So for us, that's our DB room. You know, Christian Gray out there Micah Bell looking like, man, Ben Morrison going there and shaking things up as a true freshman.
Yeah.
I'm going in there next. And Marcus Freeman said he's mature. Oh, okay. I know what I need to do. So that's all stemming well to what we have building in that rising secondary unit of elite guys that are veterans like Brandon Joseph and guys that are very mature and very talented coming up like Ben Morrison and everything in between.
Lucky Lefty podcast. So you see the young tight ends get this. This is the thing. You know, as much as people have clamored for a certain freshman get on the field, they ignore the fact that the two freshman tight ends played immediately. The two freshman defensive backs played immediately. It's like, yeah, we have to get the best guys on the field. Okay. Well, if you see the freshman tight ends and defensive backs playing, they must be where the coaching staff wants them to be. And if anyone else in that freshman class has failed to get the same amount of reps, then you would have to say they must not be at the standard that the coaching staff wants them to be at.
And that's fair.
And that's fair.
You're not throwing out that BS trusting thing. You trust a bunch of stuff.
And the head coach has been consistent in saying so. He's been consistent, and he gave you a little look into when he goes out to recruit. He's not just looking at the player. He's looking at the coach, how he's coached, the system they come from, what type of system it is, and how is it going to take, or how much work are we going to have to do from a development standpoint when we get this young man into our program based upon those factors. All of that plays a role in Notre Dame, how they recruit and how they bring guys in.
That's right.
Be patient and let the patience have its perfect work. Because when 15 finally does hit the field consistently, I have full faith that he'll be ready. He'll be ready to go. Just let him go. Not, okay, we got to pull the reins on him because he's not doing this right. Or we got to, no. When he hits the field, it's go time. He's ready to go. And that's when you're going to see him take off. Right? So if that's their plan for him and the other freshmen, look, even if you don't agree with it, they're keeping it a buck with you. They're definitely keeping it a buck with you. And they're letting you know, like, hey, this is how we do it. Lucky Lefty Podcast. Subscribe, share, most of all, smash that like button. We appreciate you as we climb the mountain up to 3,000. We keep improving. It's all because of you, LL Nation. We appreciate your continued support. Tomorrow, we're going to have a special guest, and then we're going to dig a little bit deeper into the numbers. And when we start talking about the numbers of this BYU defense, maybe you'll feel a little bit better about how good Notre Dame is going to play out in the desert on Saturday night. We'll see. Either way, it's really not about BYU. as we've been saying, it'll be about Notre Dame. You know what time it is.
Petticoat, petticoat, petticoat junction.
It's time to get petty.
Oh, we did a good job executing.
Are you upset with something?
And fire up the Petticoat Junction train.
I just don't like you.
You don't?
No.
What is today's petty historic Petty Junction?
That's right, Petty Junction, petty historians of the day. Someone said or did something that was super petty, brought to you by Onora Whisky. OnoraWhiskey.com, that premium American whiskey, OnoraWhiskey.com. Hey, bro, look here, man. Have you ever been on the football field and knew you had another skill outside of the position that you were playing, and you just wanted to show off and show the other people at that position? Man, y'all really ain't doing nothing, man. Y'all really not about anything.
No.
So I want to go to the NFL down to Tampa. This is a big game, that played on Sunday night. And safety for the Kansas City Chiefs, Justin Reed, pregame was caught being highly disrespectful to the kickers in the NFL.
Mm.
It's for 57 yards, left.
He has a leg.
He's a safety, left. He's a safety, left.
Yeah.
You see how disrespectful that is?
Yeah, thumping him thing.
That's a safety, left. Let's show that again. This is an NFL safety from 57, bro.
Nailed it.
He has a leg, man.
That was good from 60, left.
That's gonna be the new recruit.
I know.
And the safety?
Dude, you think they have an emergency kicker if that kicker gets hurt?
Yeah, or the starter.
Man.
Come on, give me a scholarship, but you get a 5-star kicker and a safety.
He has a leg, man.
I mean, he's booting it too.
Booting it. Shout out to Justin Reed, but that was mad petty, dude. You didn't have to show the rest of the NFL kickers off like that.
Yeah,
but
you started something now.
Man, put them on the petty train. This next one we like to warn, because if you have children in the room, you might want to move them. We did our best to remove most of the words that we did not want to come across, but I just had to play this video because it's the pettiest thing. We live in a world where cameras being on phones have become the thing and people want to record everything, but at sometimes you have to stop being petty and moving as the masses move, and your human side has to come out depending upon the situation. And this here left, unfortunately, was one of the most disappointing things that I saw from over the weekend. Oh, man.
Or like this really hit my shit. Bro, the shit still fucking flipped over, cuz like the bitch car still fucking flipped over. The bitch is still in the car, cuz like look at this shit. She's still fucking in here. Look at her. Man, this shit blowing my shit. She trying to play dead. You better wake up.
Bro. This is the pettiest. This is one of the pettiest things I ever saw in my life, man. Yeah. There's someone in a car that probably needs some type of help. I understand your car was damaged. I really do. If you can hear in the background, that was actually someone on the phone calling 911. Like, fam. Really?
That's crazy.
Like, I understand being upset. Your car hit your car.
I get that.
I get that.
I understand that.
But what are we really doing, man? Woman needs help. You're not even offering help, asking if she's okay.
Oh, you better wake up.
And right. Man, look, man. Yo, put that dude on the patty train. Put him on the patty train, man. Like,
Better wake up.
where's your empathy? Like, you're actually, and you look like you're in decent condition. You're walking around. You weren't injured. Yeah, your car has a little dent that can be fixed. Yo, I don't know, man. I just don't know, bro. Some people, yeah, put him on a petty train. My man, like, man, she's trying to act like both her eyes are open looking at him. He's talking about she's trying to act like she's asleep. Bro. Let's get through these right quick. Jay, how y'all feel about Love, Gray, Wingo, and McClellan all being on campus for the Stanford game? We need that St. Louis pipeline. Hey, you already know.
St. Louis pipeline is important, man.
It's real. It's real. And it's getting bigger. Believe that. Believe that. Brian Smith, I think it's the same. I think his YouTube page is the same as his Twitter handle. I think it's FB Scout _ Florida, if I'm not mistaken. FB Scout _ Florida. I think his YouTube page is the exact same. FB Scout _ Florida. Lilo Galante said if we had a quarterback, we would be 4-0. Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right. Yeah. I would have taken the improved defensive line and offensive line play with the same quarterback. You probably win all those games. But you know what was funny? I saw somebody actually put up a picture of Drew Pine and call him the offensive spark that Notre Dame needed. And I'm like, fam, the spark to the offense was the offensive line, bro. Because if you forget in the Cal game, they took the ball out of Drew Pine's hands. Like,
Yeah.
you know what?
Give me that.
Let's rely on these running backs in this O-line. And it continued on into North Carolina. Like, I don't think I would refer to Drew Pine as the offensive spark.
No.
At all.
No.
Wayne Miller, I love the names on the back for the Shamrock Series in green. I hope the players get to keep those jerseys. Did it make a difference to you whether or not you had your name on the back, bro?
Yeah, when I was hanging up in my living room.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys, when you played the Music City Bowl, you guys had names on the back, right?
Yeah,
for
but
those
you
jerseys?
can't see it. The only time you see it is when you put it on in the locker room.
Say that again. Players need to hear that, dude. That people talk about that. Man,
only time you see your name on the jersey is when you go in the locker room and they put it on the shoulder pads. And they set the shoulder pads on your chair. You like, oh, that's my name on the back. Other than that, once you put that thing on, that's it.
That's it.
You got to watch TV copy.
As we get out of here, John Erickson, thank you for tapping in. Thought I heard ML say there'll be recruits there, but they can't interact with them. Why not, since it's technically a home game? It's technically a home game, but I know campus visits are campus visits, according to the NCAA. Right? So anytime, it's a way to stop programs from manipulating visits. Right? So now you can get 3-4 visits with kids instead of them, having the one official visit. And then you have kids in the Chicagoland area or the St. Louis area, like Christian Gray, Cam Williams, Justin Scott. It's nothing for them to get to Notre Dame. Yeah. So they can go to 3 or 4 games and only use one as an official visit. But they can call Notre Dame up and say, yo, I'm coming to the game. Right? Like, how many high school kids and their families are like going to call up Notre Dame like, yo, I'm coming to Vegas? It might be a select few. Yeah, and then you wouldn't use that as an official visit because they can't see the campus. Their parents can't see the campus. So it's a lot of red tape, a lot of dotting of the I, crossing the T's, to just try and keep programs from manipulating and using those technical home games that are actually neutral field in a sense. as an advantage in recruiting. Lucky Lefty Podcast. Great show today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, for another episode. Make sure you hit the like button. Don't forget, Friday night, out in the desert. Or is the party Saturday night, Left? I'm sorry.
I think it's Friday. I'm not
It's
sure.
Friday night for the game out in the desert. We're, ecstatic to have the guys from Rent Like a Champion on yesterday discussing the big event. Malik's going to be one of the co-hosts along with Reggie Brooks and some other former Notre Dame players. It's going to be a great time. You're going to be in the Vegas area. Tap in. The secret word is Irish. You say the word Irish, you'll be able to get in free. No cover. Remember that word. From Malik Zaire, the original Lucky Lefty himself, I'm Shaun Davis. We bid you adieu until tomorrow when we dig deeper into BYU in this matchup. Have a fantastic Tuesday, but most of all, make sure that you spin it different. Have a great one, guys.